All right. I think we're getting some people in.
Hi, everyone.
I know. Welcome, everyone. We're just waiting for a few more people to join and we'll get started today. Thank you all for joining.
Just all the people, all the things. It's
I know, I
exciting.
love it. I know some people keep coming in, so I'll just say thank you all again for joining us today. And we're going to get started here in just a minute. We got a couple more folks filing in, and then we've got one more panelist who will be joining us, and here she is. I was just talking about you, Janna. So
Hi, Janna.
we will go ahead and get started. Now that we've got Janna here, we've got some more folks starting to flood in. So Sid is going to be sharing their screen, and we're just going to do some quick intros really quickly. So my name is Joanna Jackson. I am a business development and UX specialist with Sandstorm Design. I am a Caucasian female presenting person, and I have my hair pulled back in a ponytail with glasses and a green jacket on. And I'll go ahead and hand it over in just a second to our speakers, but I just want to say welcome to our Good Accessibility is Good SEO webinar. As we're going through this, if you have questions for the speakers, please submit them in the Q&A channel, and we're going to address as many as we can at the end. If we don't get to your questions at the end, we will send out, additional responses for some of the questions we may not have gotten to. But, as questions pop up, go ahead and submit them in the Q&A. And if you have general comments, you can feel free to share those in the chat channel for the group. Today's presentation will have auto captions, and the session is being recorded. Next week, we'll provide a human-corrected transcript and a link to the recording. But immediately after the presentation today, we will share today's deck, as well as a curated list of resources to help you with web accessibility. So you'll get some access to our web accessibility hub that we've made for you today. Thank you all so much for attending again. We are excited that you're here. Over to you, Sid.
Wonderful. Well, hi, everybody. Nice to have you here today.
Okay.
So I'll let Janna introduce herself first because she's first on the slide. So
okay, wonderful. Okay. Sorry, I had a little bit of technical difficulties, so thank you all for bearing with us. My name is Janna Fiester. I'm Vice President of UX and Creative at Sandstorm. My pronouns are she, her. I am a Caucasian female with shoulder-length curly hair. I typically wear glasses, but not today, and I am wearing a black short-sleeve dress. Over to you, Sid.
Hi, my name is Sid Hunsinger. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a product owner and DEIB specialist here with Sandstorm. And I am a non-binary, light-skinned person with medium dark hair that is cut short. And today I'm wearing glasses and a striped shirt. So lovely to meet you all.
Great. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about Sandstorm. So Sandstorm has been in business for over 25 years. Our headquarters is in Chicago, but we have teams all over the United States. For 15 of those years, we've been building digital experiences for associations, nonprofits, and healthcare organizations. We believe in research, and we've conducted a lot of user research. We have over 4,600 hours of usability and UX research that we bring to every project. So we already come to the table knowing what many users need, and we can make great decisions together based off that research. We also are very committed to certification. Many of our staff are CPAC certified for accessibility. We are also specialists in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, which is a DEIB specialty. And we also have WBENC certification, which is a woman-owned business. So very committed to continuing our education. So why don't we go ahead and dive in with some stats so that we can ground ourselves on where we are today. So first, 1 in 4 US adults, or 27% of the US population, has a disability. And that disability covers a wide range of people. So it can be people that are disabled, they have physical disabilities, visual impairments, spinal cord injuries, cognitive disabilities, ADHD, PTSD. But we also want to remind people of temporary disabilities, like when you have a broken arm, or there's a glare on your screen, or also disabilities that emerge as we age, such as our dexterity changes and our vision changes. And the issue we have with this, though, is that most of our websites, and as we can see, 2% of those websites do not meet accessibility standards. Thinking of all the websites there are in the world, and only 2% actually meet those standards. So we have a lot of work to do. And that is also being addressed too through the legal world. So let's go to the next slide. Since 2017, there's been a huge increase in lawsuits for accessibility. So on the right side of the screen, you see a bar chart that has website accessibility lawsuits in federal court from 2017 to 2022. In 2017, there were 814 lawsuits. In 2022, there were 3,255 lawsuits. That is an increase of almost over 300%. And those are the ones that actually go to court. The ones that settle outside of court will even make this stat higher. So not only do we have an ethical reason to be accessible, we have a legal reason too. But the nice thing about Sandstorm is that we have, through our research, have come up with some different ideas about accessibility and SEO. And many times those can be resolved with content. So what we're going to walk through today is how many of those common accessibility issues can be resolved with your content and also give you a good SEO boost. That's what we call at Sandstorm, a good twofer. We always love a good 2-for-1. So let's get started with our 10 key takeaways for good accessibility and good SEO. Sid, would you like to take us through number 1?
Sure thing. So point number 1 is that the importance of effective writing can't be overstated, because writing on the web is a lot different than other types of writing that you may have been taught in school, or if you're in different industries. Online content needs to be really clear, really simple, and really easy to read. And so a way we teach people to think about that is to format for scannability. So the bottom line is that when somebody comes to your site, they're not going to read every single word that you have on your web pages. They're going to scan to find what's most important for them. So you need to write and format your content so that it's really easy for them to do that. So we've got some best practices here on this slide where 1-sentence paragraphs are actually highly recommended for the web. Think about when you're on mobile and there's a huge wall of text. That's a barrier to consuming your content. And so people will tend to skip those large walls of content. So keeping your paragraph short and snappy. You want to make sure you begin with the end. It's kind of the reporter style, I suppose, where you put the most important in the front and then put any additional background information that might be helpful if they're interested a little bit lower down the page. You also want to make sure you're using a lot of subheads. This is, as Janna said, a good twofer, because for accessibility reasons, a screen reader or other such technology will actually read out the headers on your page. So somebody who's tabbing through with that kind of technology can know when to stop on that section of content because it's interesting to them. But also for SEO, we highly recommend that you make use of those. Search engines love them. They're a great place for you to put keywords or target keywords in your content. we love a subhead here. And then last but not least, make sure you're cutting extra words. You want to be ruthless with this because, like I said, they're not reading every single word on your site. So you want to make sure that the words you are using are the actual important ones. So on this slide, you'll see a screenshot for a page for the Apple Watch. This is highly scannable. You can, you'll notice that there actually aren't that many words on the page at all. You've got your catchy headline, a few scannable subheadings, and then photos that help supplement each one of those points. So someone who's just scanning through this page is actually going to get a lot out of this little bit of content. And then another Apple Watch example, a very similar page where you've got a nice big hero image, the headline, your scannable subheads, and supplemental photos. But then on the right-hand side, you'll notice there's actually some eye tracking data in the form of those violet circles that go down the page. So you can actually notice how we're guiding the user's eye down the page from those catchy headlines to the photos, kind of bouncing back and forth as they go down that page. We're essentially guiding their eye. So how does this work? It's all about readability, and all that means is how difficult or easy it is for someone to read something. And so breaking up your content into those smaller paragraphs is one way to increase readability, but there are a few other ways. So bullets, numbered lists, and tables are a great way. If you can show something in one of those formats, you absolutely should. A good example would be if you've got a list of items, break those out into a bulleted list. And then if your bulleted list actually has some extra words in it, it's not just, you know, a 1 or 2 word thing, you can bold the most important words in those lists to make it even more scannable as their eye is moving down the page. So not to make things even more complicated, but fewer and fewer people are actually arriving through your site through your homepage. So you want to make sure that any of these pages that you're optimizing for accessibility and SEO are consistent in the tone and voice of your brand, and that they have enough context about you and what the page is for, that they don't need to browse or venture away to get what they need from the specific page. So you want to make sure that they can understand the purpose of what you've given them or what they found in the search results without needing lots of extra context. So keeping your content simple and easy to read helps everyone. So on this slide, on the right-hand side, there are 2 photos. One is of a Braille display, and the other is of a tablet that's using a screen reader. So as a user tabs through your website, these sorts of displays are going to read out your subheadings, kind of mentioned that a little bit before. So they'll know if a particular section is something they want to stop on and read further. So you want to make sure that they don't need to read through all of the content or listen through all of the content in order to find what they're looking for. Make it really easy for everybody to scan. So our takeaway from this particular point is to keep your content scannable and free of jargon with short, easy to read paragraphs. Over to you, Janna.
Great. So let's dive into headings a little bit more, because we do want to, our takeaway number 2 is utilize clear headings in a logical order. So with our headings, as mentioned before, we use those to break up those big areas of content. But really, what are they? Well, they're words or phrases or sentences that kind of set up that section of content, that next paragraph, if you will. But then when we also think about headings, when we build websites, we also think of heading tags. And those are HTML elements that help define the heading within the content and also break it up within the page. So that's a little confusing. So let's move on to the next slide, because we like to think about it more as a structure of a book. So in this case, your H1 is the title of the book. Your H2 would be your chapter, your H3, your subsection, H4, your subsection, and it can keep going on. On the right side, we have a screen grab from the book, A Tale of Two Cities. So in this case, the H1 would be the book title, A Tale of Two Cities. H2, if you go with the same idea of the chapter, that would be your chapter 1, the period. So it starts moving you down logically through the page so the user understands what they're reading, whether they are reading it on the screen or using assistive technology, as well as those search engines understand what's going on the page as well. So let's talk about those H1s, H2s a little bit more. So we need to make sure that we have an appropriate heading structure, and it needs to be logical. So on the screen, we have a visual that shows the relationship of an H1 main heading, H2 subheading, so on and so forth. Luckily for all of us, the H1 is usually that page title, and that's defined and established from the development of the site within your CMS. So usually you do not have to worry about that. It's those H2s and H3s and so on that can give it a little tricky. And as a content administrator, you need to make sure that they follow a logical order. Your H2 followed by an H3, H4, and so on. You never want to do an H2 going to an H5 to an H4 because that doesn't make sense in a logical manner. Your users will get confused, as well as those search engines will get confused, and you will not get the SEO juice that that great page of content could give you. So our takeaway for this section is good headings provide a scannable roadmap of content for all users and those search engines. Sid, take it to number 3.
Great. Well, number 3 is all about metadata, and accurate metadata benefits everyone. So what is metadata? It is simply data that describes other data. My favorite example is to think about all of those images that live on your hard drive. If you right click and you get info on that file, you'll see file type, you'll see its size, who the creator was, and so on. And in that case, all of those things are the metadata that is describing that image. And so for your website, the metadata just describes the pages that are living on your site. Good way to think about this, probably if you've dabbled in SEO even a little bit, you've heard about this somewhat. This slide features a screenshot of Google search results for the query Sandstorm design capabilities. And this is where you can see metadata in action. So you have your page address, which is the actual URL of your page, page title, which is the title of your page, and the meta description, which is usually hidden on the front end of your website, but it will be indexed by search engines and it shows in the results when you make a query. So for the purposes of SEO and accessibility, these types of metadata are most important, as they're the intro, they're like the window of your site. They intro folks to your pages this way, so users will know that this is what they want to click on, this is what they're looking for. So for your website, some best practices around metadata look like your title should be under 60 characters. And if you are targeting a particular key phrase, you want to make sure you're using that in the title. Your meta description can be up to 300 characters, but you don't want to just stuff the keyword into that. You want to actually write a coherent, logical sentence that makes sense and use the keyword naturally in that sentence. Your headings, so this would include your H1, but oftentimes that is the same as the page title, so you might not have to think about it here, but in your H1 and all of your subheadings where it makes sense, use your keyword. Again, search engines are looking at those, so wherever you can make use of it and it sounds natural, certainly do. And last but not least, the page address. If you are able to use the exact key phrase as the URL, so for this example, it would be your dash keyword dash here. As long as it makes sense for that page, certainly go ahead and use that as the URL. Otherwise, as close as you can get should work just fine. This metadata is also important for accessibility, as it helps users know they are finding the right information and they're in the right place on your website. So our takeaway for this point is that page titles, meta descriptions, and page addresses all inform users they're in the right place. So make sure you're choosing your keywords carefully.
Great.
All right, Janna, back to you.
Thanks. Okay. Takeaway number 4. Alt text isn't just important, it is necessary. So alt text is also known as alternative text, is a written description of an image. And it's usually read aloud by a screen reader, so people who are visually impaired can understand what information that image is trying to convey. Alt text can also be read by search engines, so it gives you an opportunity to put in a keyword phrase, if you will, when it makes sense. Don't stuff it. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And it also loads in place whenever someone doesn't have enough bandwidth to be able to download the images, so they can still understand the image when they can't see it. So let's talk about the 3 types of alt text. So first we have standard alt text, short description, or a long description. Standard alt text is usually less than 250 characters, and it must convey the purpose of the image. So if you all think to your website and go to the search bar that's at your homepage, sometimes there's a little magnifying glass icon in there. Your alt text for that would not say magnifying glass icon. It would actually talk about what that icon is doing. It would have to have search in that alt text so it conveys the use or the purpose of that icon for the user to be able to understand it. Next, we have our short description, which is usually more than 250 characters. And it conveys the purpose of the image. You just don't describe it, you describe the purpose of it. So the image is usually a little bit more complex and usually also includes people. So that's where you want to make sure you have enough room to describe what the purpose is of that image with those additional characters. And finally, our long description. This one, you got some freedom. It can be as long as you need it to be. So these are used for complicated images like infographics or charts, because you want to be able to tell what that infographic or chart is saying through words. And that's where the long description does that for you. You'll also want an HTML equivalent, which Sid will talk about shortly, and it also requires an alt text. So let's show this in action. On this slide, we have an image that we used for our UNICEF USA case study on the Sandstorm website. In the upper left-hand corner is the image, and in the lower right-hand corner is a screen grab of the actual code. So in this case, for the alt text, we wanted to be able to describe this image so people would be able to understand it. And those description is a group of 8 smiling children from the Samburu tribe in Kenya sitting on a tree trunk wearing colorful clothing. So what's nice about this image, it gives context to what we're talking about with the case study, but it also reflects, if you will, the mission of UNICEF USA. You can infer or think that these children, these smiling children that are located in Kenya, are people that UNICEF USA has actually helped and is making their mission come to fruition. So that's another nice twofer from a brand perspective. So when you're thinking about your alt text, many times you're like, well, which one do I use? I have 3 options. What should I do? The madness around it. Well, you ask yourself a simple question. Is it a simple image or is it complex? Let's take a look at a simple image. So first off, simple image could be an icon or a photo. First question, does it have an image of a person in it? If you say yes, then write a short description. If you say no, then you have to ask yourself, can you describe the photo in 250 characters? If yes, write alt text. If no, write a short description. This is kind of nice, so then you do have some flexibility to be able to tell what that image is in relation to the content. And also, whenever you can, maybe slide in a good keyword in there for some more additional SEO juice. But for a complex image, basically, if it's complex, a chart or graph, write that alt text, write that image description. You're going to need it to be able to convey that information to the users who cannot see it or have not been able to download it. So our takeaway for this section is all images need to have alt text. And you can use target keywords when it makes sense, but again, don't stuff those, and we'll know why in just a couple of minutes. Go ahead, Sid.
So Janna kind of hinted at this a couple moments ago, but for number five, we're talking about why text-heavy images need an HTML equivalent. So what is a text-heavy image? We see a lot of these examples across many of our clients. So for example, event banners where you have a hero image with the event title, the location information, the date information, all like embedded in the image itself. That's one example of a text-heavy image. Another might be a logo collage that you create for sponsors or supporters where they're all on a single canvas. Sometimes we get hero images that have a headline embedded in the photo. And then, of course, you've got your infographics where it's an in-depth graphic that visualizes a lot of different data. They're usually quite long with lots of text. And I'm sure there are many other examples, but these are certainly the most common. So when we talk about an HTML equivalent of these images, we simply mean that there's a version on the site that a search engine can scrape and to index that content properly. So This could be in the form of one of two ways, where you can have a transcript where it exists on the front end alongside the image, or it could be a long description that's hidden from the front end, but a screen reader would be able to access it, as well as search engine robots. So let's take a look at an HTML equivalent for each of these examples. So for this slide, we have a screen grab from one of our clients, the Association for Corporate Growth. We don't normally recommend a text-heavy banner image like this. That's why we're telling you to make an HTML equivalent. But in this case, it's okay since there's some context around it in the form of that HTML text. So you have the live text of the event title, the date of the event, as well as where it's taking place. For logo collages, this is again from the Association for Corporate Growth. We gave them the ability to easily upload the logos separately and have them automatically display in these nice grids like this. So it gives each one its own unique alt text, as well as some other great features like being able to actually link out to either the client's or the sponsor's website, or if they have a detail page with some additional information about that sponsor, they can link over that. A user could click one instead of just being met with a canvas of all the logos. So for a hero banner, we have this great example from the Crown Family School of Social Work, Policy, and Practice over at the University of Chicago. This is actually live text over that banner image. So if you were to highlight the text, you could copy and paste it. And again, doing it this way allowed us to give them some extra features where there's actually a separate button underneath the header or the hero text with a CTA to anything that they might want to promote at that current time. And last but not least, infographics, again, our prime opportunity to make use of a long description. The example on this slide is from Nike. It's for their Flyknit sneakers. But we have a good example from our client over at Now Foods showing the alt text, the long description, and the image all working in concert together. So there's a screenshot of their Why Magnesium, about why it's good for your health and well-being, an infographic on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side at the top, there's another screenshot of their back end where there is the alternative text field where it says, Why Magnesium, see long description. So you're giving users that opportunity to pause and decide if they do want to read or listen to the screen reader read out the entirety of that long description. And then the last screenshot on the bottom right is just a basic WYSIWYG field with everything on that infographic marked up with HTML. So it's got headers, it's got bullet points. It would allow a screen reader user to tab through those headings the same way they would on a page. So a search engine is also scraping that. So they're indexing all that content and giving you the good SEO juice for that. So our takeaway from this is make sure you leverage HTML content wherever you can, as it's accessible and it's easier for search engines to index.
Great. Okay, takeaway number 6, keyword stuffing doesn't help anybody. So let's figure out what keyword stuffing is first. So keyword stuffing is when a writer forces keywords unnaturally into the content to potentially rank for better SEO. Or just imagine like jamming all the same phrase over and over in the content to where it doesn't really make sense. You can kind of tell. So let's see an example of this. So in our world of COVID, we also think about time zones a lot when we are trying to set up a meeting. So recently a sandstormer put in a Google search to figure out what would be 18 hours after 11:30 p.m. So instead of figuring out, let's just see what Google gave us. And they started combing through the results. And on the right side is actually results that were found on a time zone calculator page. So in this case, we can tell that the people were trying to, if you will, stuff this phrase into the little content above the actual calculator. So you're burying the result that I'm looking for with all this crazy content. And the content, here we have calculated what time it will be, 18 hours from 11 a.m. In other words, what is 11 a.m. plus 18 hours? It doesn't not matter if it's 11 a.m. today or any other day from the past or future. It keeps going on. It's almost really kind of comical. And all I really want as a user is to get to that 5 a.m. lower on the page. So what this does is it makes it actually very hard for the user to find the content they're looking for, but they're reading this and they're just like, wait a minute, this feels kind of spammy. Who is this organization? Do I actually want to use this website if this is what I'm seeing? So it's impacting the brand experience. And it's just also, it's just very silly. So don't do this. It's very silly. So our tip for this to make you stop doing it, do not put keyword stuff, is to choose one primary keyword for your page and find other naturally occurring keywords to highlight as you go, especially in those subheads, as Sid mentioned. Again, SEO, search engines love it because they get more context for the page. They get an understanding. Your users will understand the focus of the page and be able to engage as long as it's done in a natural manner. And let us show you an example for that. So on the screen is a screen grab of a page about keyword stuffing. Very interesting that we chose this, right? From Ahrefs, which is one of the best SEO tools in the market. And they were able to use their primary topic, in this case, keyword stuffing, but then be able to use it throughout the content in a way where it feels real. It feels like real content, that you're not trying to sell me something. And it feels intentional. So not only is your H1 keyword stuffing, your H2, what is keyword stuffing? So you automatically get some nice SEO juice. Then later on in the content, you know, is keyword stuffing important for SEO? So you're almost answering the questions with that keyword phrase, but it's very focused and it's very intentional, no jargon to really hurt their user reading the content or those search engines from understanding what's the goal of this page. So our takeaway for this is, for every 100 words you write, use your target keyword one time.
Right. Point number 7 is that link text needs to be clear and descriptive. So I'm just going to go to the next slide so you can get a sense of what we mean by this. So this is Daniel in the Lion's Den by Peter Paul Rubens, but we've added some flair to it in the form of speech bubbles over top of several of the lions. One is saying more information here, here, and here, with all the heres being hyperlinked. Fill in this form by the end of the day with the word form hyperlinked. And then check the security policy by this link with the word link hyperlinked. These are not great examples of good link text. And this is all summarized by the caption over top of this painting, which says, "A user in the den of bad links." So if you take nothing away from this presentation, nothing else, take away that you shouldn't be using link text like this. So why is that? A big reason is for users that are using assistive technology. When they're tabbing through your site with a screen reader, your links are becoming focusable items, and that screen reader is going to read them out so that the user knows if it's something they want to click on. So when they just hear here, here, and here back to back, they have no context to know what they're going to click on or where that link is going to take them. So yeah, and after that, those speech recognition tools that often go along with a screen reader can be programmed to open a link after a specific voice command. So want to make sure that they have all the context they need so that they know if that link is something that they want to open. This slide features a screenshot from an association that we worked with called Appraisal Institute, and they actually had good examples of both good and bad link text all on one page, which is nice for our purposes today. So this is their group affiliation program, and it's talking a bit about an application for that program, as well as what the benefits from joining would include. And the first bullet features some link text for discounts on education, publications, including books, courses, seminars, and webinars. And though those links are all very short and snappy, the fact that they're in context on what they're getting discounts on, it's a good enough context, it's really clear. And if someone were to click on education, because anybody in the real estate appraisal profession knows that Appraisal Institute is really well known for their education, if they open that link, reasonably, they can assume that they're going to go to their education listings. Whereas a little bit further down that page, we have learn more about the vast array of benefits with learn more linked. And that is a vague link that doesn't indicate where they might go if they were to open that link on this page. So good and bad all on one page. And we do have some other examples. These ones are from kent.edu. So visit http://www. and so on and so forth for more information. You don't want to just drop a link as it is with no link text at all. Because again, as I just tried to read the link out to you, a screen reader will do the same thing for someone who's using that technology. So you want to make sure that they don't have to sit through all that. They can instead just here visit the Web and Social Media Services website as a link instead. Example number 2 is another click here example. So we would rather have that be learn more about accessibility guidelines and web standards, with that last phrase being the hyperlink. So you know, if you were to click that, you would be going to look at those guidelines. And then the last example says information for current students and information for new students, with only the word students both times being highlighted. That's almost the same thing as hearing here, here, and here back to back. It doesn't offer much context. So very simple fix for this one would be to hyperlink current students and new students, so that that very subtle context is there. Users would know where they're going if they were to click that. So make sure your link text is unique. Again, we don't want to have click here or read more. If there's nothing else you take away, take that into your heart and take it with you when you leave. If you have any button or any special links, you want to buttonize those. So Janna will talk a little bit more about that later, but that would be something that a user takes an action on, like submitting a form. Where it makes sense, group links together. For the Appraisal Institute example, all those offerings were grouped together in the same bullet point even. And then if you have any download links on your site for things like PDFs and so on, you want to make sure you include the file format and the size so that the user knows they're going to initiate a download. And again, Janna will talk a little bit more about that in a second. So make sure your links don't say read more or click here. Take this with you when you leave.
I'm going to take it with us too.
Good.
That's awesome. Okay, so for our takeaway number 8, links need predictable behavior. We want a user, as Sid mentioned before, we want them to understand where they're going to go before they click, because if they don't, they're going to get lost and then they're going to leave your site and they'll never come back. So let's dive into this a little bit more. So we need to make sure that those links help the user understand and know what to expect before they click on it. We don't want to have surprises. So first, buttons, those are usually when people take an action. As Sid mentioned, they're completing a form, like I need to submit this form, or I'm adding something to my cart. They're taking an action. External links are links that will take you off site to another site. So we want to make sure that we have an indicator so users understand that they're going to be leaving your site. Files need to be identified, as Sid mentioned, usually with type and the file name, but also just that it's clear that you're going to be downloading it, making sure that link is clear enough that you are going to be downloading something. And then you want to make sure you have a lot of cross-linking between your pages so that we can make a really good experience for that user and also increase our SEO opportunities. So first, let's dive in to show some examples of an external link, a document link, and a button. So on the screen, we have 3 screen grabs from Now Foods. The one at the top left is showing an external link. And the link itself is register in advance for this webinar. And next to that link is an icon for an external icon link. So the user will understand not only that if they click this, they're going to register in advance for this webinar, they're registering for something. But with that icon, they know that they're going to be actually leaving the site. So you can almost say that's another good twofer, really making it clear what's going to happen for that user. Below that, we have an example of a document link. So the link, it says download the deck with an icon for a document. So automatically, it just doesn't say access the PowerPoint, access this deck. By using the word download, the user understands that before I click, I'm going to download this. So they can make that choice on whether they want to at that moment. Then on the far right, this example, it has a spiked lavender oil bottle and below it a button that says add to cart. A really great use for a button. The user's taken an action. I want to put this into my cart. Therefore, it needs to be a button. So what about cross-linking? We want to make sure our pages have plenty of cross-linking to other pages within the site or other things that you might need to use. Cross-linking creates a really great user experience to where they start becoming more exploratory and they will go to more of your pages, which is usually a KPI we all have. We want our users to be on the site more. You don't want to create a dead end where you have a page that has no links, because then they're going to read it and then they're going to go away and never come back again. So ways to really think about adding cross-linking to your site is to first, well, what if I want to link them to the pages below in the navigation, the siblings of this page, or the children of this page? Have links going down to those children so they continue and can dive in deeper if they want to. Or you can also have links to go to the siblings within the navigation, the other sections within that section at the same level. So you can have the user again start exploring and learning more and entering and accessing more of your content. Perhaps add a link to a tool that might help them use something that you said in that content. Have it right there so that they can access it quickly and easily. And then if you're having trouble finding ways to add cross-linking, perhaps add a contact us link, purchase link, or a share on your networks. You want to be able to create a great experience for the users to engage with your content and stay on the site. But this also helps from an SEO perspective because the search engines will see how the different pages link together and get a better understanding of your content. Therefore, they'll actually serve it up faster based off of the different keywords or the different search queries. So again, another good twofer. But you have to be very careful when it comes to those cross links. You need to have a really good redirect strategy, because later on you'll go back in and you might remove a page that no longer people don't go to anymore, but it's linked to another page, and that could result in a dead link, which we've all been there. When you get that dreaded dead link, it's awful. It hurts the experience, but that also can hurt the SEO because that link will drive the search engines to that page that is no longer there. So your SEO juice is gone. So you want to make sure you have a really good strategy for whenever you are moving pages or removing them to go back and make sure those cross links have been updated so you do not create any bad links. So our takeaway for this section is clearly label buttons and links as PDFs, external links, automatic downloads, and so on. And we should probably have a good redirect strategy too. Our takeaway number 9 is colors need to have appropriate contrast ratios. We need to make sure that people can see the color. So let's move on. So why? Many times people will, it could be that they have they're colorblind, or as I mentioned earlier, our eyes are aging. So we need to make sure that we have enough contrast so people can see the color on the page, especially because many times color is used for linking or for other actions on the site. So you need to make sure that it has appropriate contrast so that everyone can be able to read it. So one way to test your contrast is a great free tool from WebAIM. The link is webaim.org/resources/contrast checker. This is a free tool that you can use right after this call, or you might be loading it up right now, which would be super duper cool. We have a screenshot where we are testing a medium gray, which is a 757575. It's a foreground color, so that's probably our text. And you're testing it on a background color of white, which is FFFF. And as soon as you put those values in, the tool will automatically tell you your contrast ratio, which in this case is 4.6 to 1, which for AA WCAG standards, you want 4.5. So it's really going in the right direction from a contrast perspective. If you want more information, lower on the screen grab, you'll have an immediate view of what is pass and what is failing. Passing being indicated by the word pass with a green background, or the word fail in nice bright red. So in this case, this ratio would work well for normal text for WCAG AA. It would also work great for large text for AA, AAA, as well as graphical elements AA. So it's a really great color ratio to consider. Many times with our clients, we're asked, what is normal text? And that's what we think about as body content. Right now, commonly people use 16 pixels for your body content. We're expecting that for the next version of WCAG to go up to 18. So usually we are between 16 and 18 for our body content. It's a lot bigger than the old, when we used to have it be like 9 and 12 back in the day. So luckily with contrast, many times this is set up whenever it's being developed. Let's go on to the next slide, please. So usually your UI designer and then your developer creates those contrast ratios that you need going forward. But the problem that comes up is when you're actually adding new content as the content administrators, you're adding new images, you're adding new charts. But thinking a little bit about that through the development and the design phase can actually save you in the future. Let me show you an example. So for the Orthopedic Trauma Association, on the screen, we have a screen grab of their hero area on their homepage. And the image in the hero is kind of dark. So the content on it is a light blue for Orthopedic Trauma Association, as well as their headline is in white, promoting excellence in orthopedic trauma, education, research, and advocacy. So this setup, this contrast ratios work really well when that image is dark. But what if someday the content administrator wants that image to be really, really light? So what we did is identified that as a need. So we built it with an opportunity for you to flip from light text, the white text, to black text. So it gives you utmost flexibility from a content administration point of view, and also maintains those content contrast ratios we're looking for. On the next slide, let's talk about charts and graphs. We need to be really mindful, especially when we're just using color for your charts and graphs. We recommend not doing that. So in the upper part, we have an inaccessible representation of some data, and the bottom part inaccessible. First, the top part, we are using color to identify the preferred operating systems, red being Windows, Linux being green, Macintosh being blue. If that goes into a grayscale, or if someone has a color blindness deficiency, they could see it all as the same tone. And then even in a line chart, the same thing would happen over in the far right. You can't tell because you're only relying on color to tell that data. What is better is on the bottom where you've selected colors that have enough contrast between each other, the dark blue for Windows, medium blue for Linux, and a light blue for Macintosh. But you've also included the values in the actual chart. So if someone cannot see those colors, they can still get the information from the content itself. Then in the far right, actually for a line chart, using different types of lines, not only through color, but dotted lines to identify those different values, and also identifying those through labels will help users engage with the content and understand what you're trying to say through your data. So our takeaway for this is to check and make sure your colors are easily legible for all users.
All right, we made it to the end. Our last point, number 10, is that regular review and maintenance is crucial. Your SEO and accessibility work is going to be ongoing. Accept that, internalize it, take it into your heart. It's just a fact. So you're going to always be continuously developing new content for your website. There will be times when you want to update, optimize, or prune your old content. And whether it's on your own or with an agency like us, we do this a lot for many of our clients, do it biannual or semi-annual rather, scan or audit of the website for accessibility issues. So there are a few things you might want to look at for both of these areas as you start to think about what a regular maintenance plan might look like. For SEO, monitor metrics like landing pages and exit pages. So where are users coming into your site? Which pages are they leaving really quickly? You can look at what's working well so that you can take that and implement it on maybe some lesser performing pages. Keywords, you'll probably do a robust keyword research exercise as part of your original SEO efforts, but keywords change. There might be new things that you want to try to target. So regularly running new keyword research is always recommended. Looking at clicks and impressions of your content in search engines so you can see what's showing up really well, but maybe it doesn't have a lot of clicks. You might want to look at why users aren't clicking to make some improvements. Looking at your rankings so you can see what might be close to being on the first page of Google search results so that you can then optimize or look for opportunities on those pages to give them that last little bump that they need. Site search queries are also really good at, or good to look at. These would be any internal searches made on your site. So you can see what content are people trying to find, and if they're having trouble finding it, maybe investigate that. Or if you don't have content for something they're searching for, look at that as an opportunity to create some new content for them. And then, of course, going back to what Janna said about broken links, making sure you have a redirect strategy in place, but also many of the audit tools for SEO will scan for those broken links, so you can find them and redirect them to either the next appropriate page that they should go to, or to the home page if there's no related or close enough content to that old content. For accessibility, many audit tools that we use, like the Pally Node.js tool, which we use with Drupal, lots of our higher ed clients use Site Improve, and Moncito has become really popular lately as well. We've kind of touched all of those, but most of them check for the same things, which would be color contrast issues. So if you've added a chart or a table to your site, usually it's pretty good at recognizing those. Inappropriate header markup. So if you've gone from an H2 to an H4, it's pretty good at recognizing that as well. If you've got missing alt text for any of your images, it'll let you know that, so you can pop in there and add that text. Unnecessary PDFs, they're not really something that it'll scan for, but most PDFs are really difficult to make accessible. So if there is an opportunity to take that good content out of a PDF and make it HTML on your site, certainly look for those opportunities. ARIA labels are invisible tags or labels that are present on some links and buttons on your site. And so sometimes these tools will flag those as inaccurate. So you'll want your dev team to look and see if there are opportunities to improve those. And then looking for any unusual link behavior, like if a link opens in a new tab, but it's not labeled that way, you want to make sure that you identify those. And then just doing this yourself, even tabbing through your site, making sure you're able to get to where any user can go with a mouse and keyboard, making sure you can tab through to all those areas using your keyboard. So our takeaway for this is that neither your SEO nor your accessibility efforts are one and done. So make sure you've got a plan in place to come back and regularly check on these things. We did it, made it to the end. These are all of your takeaways to take with you when you leave us today.
Yes, absolutely. So feel free to take a screen grab, or you will be getting this deck after the presentation, as Joanna mentioned. So just as a recap, number one, keep that content scannable, short and easy. Make sure you have good headlines to make sure it's very scannable again. Page titles, meta descriptions, paid addresses, use those to help orient those users to your content. All images need to have alt text. So please go back to your your images and add that alt text. Leverage HTML where you can to get that not only great, people can read the content, but get that SEO juice. For every 100 words you write, use your target keyword one time. And again, as Sid mentioned, please remove read more and click here, not only on your web, but also your emails, anywhere you have links to anything. Please make sure you change those so people understand where they're going to go. And then clearly label those buttons and links to make sure that users understand where they're going to go before they click. Make sure your colors are easily accessible, easily legible, have enough contrast, and know that this is a journey. It's not a one and done, but think of it more as a great challenge and a great opportunity to get into your content and make sure it's accessible. Because after all, good usability is good accessibility. So thank you again for meeting with us. I'm going to hand it back over to Joanna to help us with any questions.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you all so much too for that presentation. Is awesome. And I think just, really helps give people all the things they need to give, search engines the full picture and really what their content is. So with that, we've got a few minutes left. So we are opening it up to questions. We've had a few questions come in, or if there's any comments you all would want to drop in the chat, please feel free to do that. So the first question that we've got are accessibility overlays enough?
Accessibility overlays. I love this question. So for anyone that doesn't understand what that is when you go to a website and you might look in it's usually the lower left-hand corner, there's a little circle with a person, like person icon and you click on it and a thing appears and you can change your contrast, your font size, or what have you. That's an accessible overlay. Are they enough? We find that they can actually hinder the assistive technology that the person is using. So a person comes to your site, they have their setup on their computer already ready to go with their assistive technology. And if they click on that button, it can actually interfere with their setup, making the site even less accessible. So we do recommend trying to move away from the overlays and actually doing it within the code, checking your UI, checking your content, all those things, because then you don't have to rely on another tool. You can actually make sure that your website was built from an accessibility point of view in mind from the very beginning.
Awesome. All right, I've got another question here. How do I create a unique brand experience with interactions, etc., while still being able to make sure that my website is accessibility compliant?
Yeah, that's something we're seeing in a lot, and Sid definitely jump into. I'm kind of on it right now. Sometimes people are like, well, if I build it with accessibility in mind, how can I make it unique? How can I bring my brand experience to life? And what we like to think about when we challenge our clients is don't make accessibility an afterthought, like your last sprint. Oh, we need to make it accessible. Let's make it accessible now, right before it launches. You need to be thinking about it from the very beginning and setting up those standards. Do you want to go after just WCAG 1A, or are you going to go after 2A, or are you going to be amazing and go after 3A? Because then that helps you define those parameters that you want to use and start setting up those things that you're going to need on the site to be accessible, but then also know what you'll need to do to make it a great brand experience. Just because you want to make it accessible doesn't mean you can't have video. You'll just need to have that stop motion video or stop all motion button on your hero to stop all motion on the sites for those users that don't want to see that. There's things that you can think about. Making sure those buttons kind of maybe they have to have more than color to show that they are clickable. Or what if a little element comes in from your brand and kind of sweeps in? It still works from an accessibility point of view, but it gives you opportunity to create a great brand experience. So if you think about it at the end as a checkbox you need to do, it's not going to be great. Think about it from the very beginning and make it be part of your UX strategy.
Awesome. Yeah, I know we've had a few folks that have worked with us that have, thought about it from the beginning, and we've had some really cool interactions on their homepage that we've actually been able to animate elements and still make sure that it's accessibility compliant. So you can still animate and have cool colors and branding. It's just thinking about it from the beginning. All right, I've got another question here. How do these best practices align with my newsletter?
I can take this one.
Sounds great.
It really depends on your email builder. They generally do the same things and have very similar functionality, but I know like some email newsletter builders might only have one style of header, which is fine, but you'll want to make sure wherever you can, you're following those best practices. So if you do have a header, make sure you're using the appropriate header block type or field, or if you can use WYSIWYG styles, making sure you have the right header selected, taking that most important thing we shared, I think, with the text or the link text, making sure you have real specific and clear links. And I believe most email builders will allow you to add alt text. So as long as you're hitting those important parts, you should be able to take most of our strategies and tips into those email newsletters without sacrificing too much. The one question that we got last time we did this, something similar came up where they were asking about how link behavior in email newsletters, like how do I make sure users know where they're going to go? I think I did some reading about it. I think the best or the assumption is that if they're getting an email, they inherently know that the links are going to be going to other places. Like if you click a link in their email, you're probably going to be sent over to like the Sandstorm site. You're going to get an email where you're going to go download the deck. It's going to take you to our site. I think that assumption is just kind of inherent. So needing to worry about labeling links is less important, but at least using text like for a file, if you're going to download a file, writing that in text, even if you don't have a symbol to use, is best practice, making sure your CTAs are really.
Awesome. What a way to finish strong, Sid, on that one of the
Oh,
last.
right on time.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, and right on
Cool.
time. So we wanted to say, let's connect and thank you all so much. We've got the QR code up to download the presentation. Other resources. We'll be sending out this deck and those resources right after the call, following with the recording and the transcript next week. So, if you're in this call and you're thinking, oh goodness, do we have skeletons in our closet and we have some accessibility questions, feel free to reach out, connect with us. We're happy to do some accessibility audits as well. And we love doing accessibility audits. So thank you all so much for joining today. And thank you again, Sid and Janna, for being such wonderful co-panelists.
Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it.